You're listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Tracey C. Jones welcoming you to another Tremendous Leadership, Leaders on Leadership podcast, where we pull back the curtain on leadership and we talk with leaders of all ages and stages about what it takes to pay the price of leadership. And if you see me smiling with a big grin, it's because my tremendous guest, Merle, and I had been waxing eloquently for 15 minutes. I thought I had the recording. And it had stopped. So we're going to do this again, Merle, and you're going to get to share your tremendous story again. First of all, I want to introduce you to Merle Heckman. Merle, tell us how you connected, how we reconnected, because you have been a fan and a lover of books for many, many years.
Yes. Tracey, I'll tell a little bit about, I read Life is Tremendous when I was a young person, junior high age. But about 5 weeks ago, I was on a plane and I was just scrolling through LinkedIn and I saw your name and information. And I thought, hey, I could be in contact and just let somebody know what a benefit the book had been to my life. So I wrote you just a bit to describe my background with that. And then you were nice enough to interact. So it was through good old LinkedIn connections that we made that talk.
Absolutely. And the message that Merle had sent to me was that as a young man, as a pre-teenager, his mother had given him books to read to earn money and said, if you read these books and write a book report, I will pay you, which is one of the things that Charles advocates in Life is Tremendous and a lot of people do. So tell us about what she laid on the table and the books that she picked.
So it's the school that just ended, 7th grade's done. I'm 12 years old. And I live on a grain farm in Missouri, corn, soybeans, and wheat. And so I had 2 plans for that summer. One, working with my dad on the farm, driving the green John Deere tractors. And secondly, playing baseball with my buddies. And the very first day, my mother asked me a question, first day of vacation. That question affected my life. And she said, now, what good books do you plan to read this summer? And I drew a blank because that was not in my agenda. And then she said, there are 10 books around the house that I have that would be good for you to read, that would help you. And I will give you $10 for every one of those you read. And it has to be this summer. And so with my aggressive entrepreneurial spirit, I read a grand total of 2. And the 2 books were How to Win Friends and Influence People and Life is Tremendous.
Wow.
And those books and the messages from them have guided me, directed my life over 56 years of life.
Unbelievable. And for our listeners
is.
out there, you see it is the beginning of summer. If you're listening to this when we first recorded, we're 1 week into summer. So what a brilliant question for you to ask your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. Hey, what are you reading this summer? Would you like to earn some extra money? And my father did it the same for me. You know, we'd be rather doing other stuff, but he motivated us, engaged us to do it. So let me tell you a little bit about Merle. He's an experienced organizational development manager. He has a history of working in the industrial automation industry. But right now, his greatest love is encouraging others to discover and be confident in their best self. And that's done through teaching, training, and understanding the humanness of every individual. I love that you're a teacher, Merle. Can you tell us where you're teaching?
Yes, for the last over 20 years, I was an adjunct at several different universities, Tracey, while I was doing full-time work. And then I have become, in the last 4 years, a full-time instructor at Northern Kentucky University here in Northern Kentucky. And I teach things like organizational development. I teach HR type things, and that's the other things I've taught all the way through. Along with that, then, I've also, for the last 17 years, been a instructor for the Dale Carnegie course and teach a lot of those courses also. So again, all that came to fruition because of that question my mom asked.
I can't, and for those of you didn't say it, but How to Win Friends and Influence People was a Dale Carnegie book, and here you are, and here we are. So books get in you, and they become part of your DNA. So speaking of which, Charles, in addition to Life is Tremendous, he gave a speech called The Price of Leadership, and that's what we're really here to talk about today. And he gave this speech, and I transcribed it because it was one of his most famous speeches, and in it, called The Price of Leadership, He says that there are 4 things that as a leader, you are going to have to pay the price if you're really going to be a leader and not just a leader in name only. And the first of those 4, Merle, is loneliness. And we've all heard that it's lonely at the top. But can you unpack for us throughout your career what has loneliness looked like for you and maybe a word to share with our listeners if they are in a season of loneliness?
I'm fortunate, Tracy, that I have a lot of people around me, friends and family, and because I learned how to connect well with people, I like to be around people and they like to be around me. Yet as a leader, there are times that you cannot just lean on what everybody else wants. There are times that you have to make some choices, and not even necessarily ethical choices, but you have to make some choices of what you want to do, who you want to be. And there's a measure of loneliness with that. And in certain positions, I believe also you find you have to make some choices.
Mhm.
There's a gentleman that's the head coach at the University of Georgia football team and named Kirby Smart. Now, I'm not a University of Georgia fan, so I have no dog in the hunt with that. But he said things like that when you're a leader, you have to make some hard decisions that will affect people you love and care about. He also said you'll be misunderstood about decisions you make, and you're not going to have the ability to explain your position. And the other thing he said is you will be misunderstood when you're trying to do your best to help the most of it. There will always be people that say, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And that, I believe, really expresses a part of loneliness also that
Yeah.
leaders face.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's a fact. Sometimes the people that you're there helping the most are the ones that are snapping at you, and it is what it is. So it's good to be that aware. And what would you recommend? Isn't it great that you read How to Win Friends and Influence People so you understood how the body and having people around you, is that really what gets you through that time period when the very people that you're trying to help the most are the ones that are really giving you the most guff?
Certainly that support group that we have, and I have immediate family, but I also have friends that are wise friends
Mm.
that will be sounding boards to me. Another thing that has really helped me in that is I ask myself the questions, try to ask them honestly. Am I doing this for me or am I doing it for the well-being? Another question I ask is, do I see things that are ahead that perhaps other people don't have the opportunity to see?
Mm.
And I really look at my heart motive if I'm doing it for the well-being. I look at even classes I teach. Is it all about me or is it about them?
Oh,
And that
yeah.
helps me as I go through that loneliness.
Well, as a teacher, that's such a beautiful thing because a lot of times we get very caught up in, hey, making our point or sharing, but I love that you look at that. You have to look at them and sometimes the more lonely we feel, it's because we are looking at just ourselves and turning our gaze away and realizing this is really not about you. I love that that's your secret sauce for pulling yourself out of that.
Good friend that has made the comment to me, she says, less of me, my, mine, and I, and more of they, them, us, and we.
Mm.
And those are words that have helped me. It is not about me. It is about the people we
It
encounter.
is.
So
And when you frame it like that, you include the body collective, which is how it should be. I love it. All right, so loneliness. The next thing he talked about was weariness. And as you said, just like there'll always be people that push back on you, he also told me, Tracy, in life, you're going to have some people that go far and above what you expect from them, but you're also going to have a lot of people that don't do what's expected of them. And he was just being very pragmatic, not negative, just, this is dealing with people. And he would tell me, and you have to be careful because it's very draining and you can get weary. What does weariness look like to you, and how do you stay shored up and strong so you can lead these young entrepreneurs and your family?
many years ago in college, I heard a statement by Longfellow. Now, I'm not an expert on that kind of literature, but it was a statement that stuck with me. It goes like this: The heights of great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight,
Mm.
but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. And so you realize that sometimes you have to get up a little bit early and you have to stay up a little bit later. And at times you have to do some work when other people are playing, and it's not that you're better than them. Everybody likes a good product, Tracy. Everybody likes that. Ooh, ooh, I wish I could talk like that. Everybody likes that. But not everybody sees what goes on behind. John Wooden, the famous basketball coach of UCLA, he quoted a poem that I do not have word for word, but it was the story of a champion. And it goes something like this. You look at how they play, you wonder how they do it, how they do all those motions and how they choose it. But if you look behind the scenes, you'll see most of it's practice
Mhm.
and the rest of it's work. And you just realize if you want to do certain things and be an influence, there has to be some of that hidden time. And yeah, it can be a bit taxing, but you do learn to energize yourself in different ways. And
Right.
that's what a leader has to do. Can't lean on everybody else to energize you. In your times of weariness, you have to pull in energy for yourself.
Yeah, you have to, change out your batteries when you need to. You know what I'm saying? But you kinda mentioned, what we were talking about this before we hit record, for the second time, the new common denominator of success, and that it's all about habits, and that the success is successful because the success does the things that the failure doesn't wanna do. And it is wearisome, but and I love that you said, by doing that I can remember my dad telling me, because I would be like, "Don't you get tired of this? Isn't it?" Because he would speak 250 days a year and speak in the morning, speak in the afternoon, and, almost like Elvis, 3 showings every day, forever and ever. And he's like, "I know, Tracy, but when you're doing what you're supposed to do, work is more fun than fun. You just have to take care of yourself." But that becomes its own self closed loop system where you're pouring in, you have others pouring into you, and you're pouring out.
Tracy, I always find what you said there about doing w- what you're wired to do. And I always wonder how many people in life are able to do that.
Mm.
I ask that question to barber shops and different places. I'll say, how many people do you think really get to do something they really enjoy?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we think it's probably about 10 or 12% of folks that actually get to do that.
Mm.
But there is where I worked at, we used to have this evaluation test we give potential new employees as we were trying to decide to hire. And we would give a list of the tasks that they were going to be doing in that job. And we found, Tracy, that there were certain tasks that people would do that they were termed as energizing tasks. They got energy from 'em. But there were other tasks that they do that are draining on them. And when every one of us can look at what we do and say, all right, I've always got to do some draining. That's part of life. But when you can do the things that bring you energy, 'cause Tracy, I tease folks, I said, if you put me with spreadsheets all day long, I'd figure out how to do it, but I'd be pretty drained.
Yeah.
But when I get to do and interact with people, that brings me energy. And so in the weariness, it's finding energy in those ways.
Yeah, beautiful, and around people that are, what do they say? Some people brighten a room when they enter it, others when they leave, So it's kinda one of those things where you protect your energy and give energy to other people because people are looking for it. So, okay, so Merle, we talked about loneliness, we talked about weariness. The next term he used was abandonment. And it's not like alienation of abandon a marriage or a pet. Abandonment was singular soul focus. And I can remember again when I was in high school going down and my father was kind of reflective in his basement office. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, well, Tracy, he goes, in any given day, he goes, I do more to contribute to my failure than my success. And his point to me was every day you must take every moment, every thought. The Bible has a term about seizing it, holding it captive and making sure that your energy is really dedicated to that thing and abandoning what you like and want to do in favor of what you ought and need to do. So, how do you stay focused, Merle?
The writings of Viktor Frankl and his book, that he wrote on finding, your purpose in life. There's a great statement that he made, Tracy. It said, "Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing." And if somebody would read the me about meaning of life that he wrote, they'd see that he went through the Holocaust. He lost his family, lost his business practice, lost his house, everything. But he said everything can be taken from a person, but one thing: the power to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. And whenever I hear that, I am very much rebuked on the inside when I start to moan, groan, and complain of why me. I said, I really don't have much room to talk after hearing that man say that.
Mhm.
And so I get to choose the attitude. And the quicker I make the choice to choose the attitude that is best and right, the less that I waste emotion and time and energy. That goes back to energize yourself. And so you have to choose the right thoughts. It doesn't mean that we are unrealistic. I think there is a positiveness. It's a fake positiveness, but it's just learn, okay, this is what I got. This is what I can do. All right, I go with it. And that has been a huge help for me.
Yeah.
Probably one other thing, Tracy, along that line on abandonment is sometimes the people we teach, the people we do our best to help, do not choose to follow. And sometimes people that were close allies decide to go a different way.
Mm,
And I really had to struggle with that.
right.
But there was a statement I heard years ago that helped me: teach the teachable and reach the reachable. Teach the ones that want to be taught, present to the ones that are open, and the ones that aren't, they're not bad people. There are other ways. I'm not the guru of all knowledge of the world. It's okay. But don't focus on the ones.
Yeah.
It's like when I was a young man, Tracy, we'd have a training and maybe there were supposed to be 25 people there and 12 people would show up. And I'm like, where's all these other people at? And then one day I said, Merle, come on, man. Talk to the people who are there. Take good care of them. Don't ignore the others. So you will have some abandonment sometimes, but it's okay.
It is
It's
okay.
okay. You teach the ones you can teach.
I love that. Teach the teachable, reach the reachable. For those of you that have not read, yes, you must read Life is Tremendous. Yes, you must read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you must read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. That's the book that he's referring to. And when you read that, I can tell when people have not read that. And I'm like, up, before we do, read that book first, if you will, because that is one of the top 5 books that has changed my life and so many other people's lives. And you talked about, people showing up. Charles would say that, he'd do meetings and maybe there should have been 1,000 and maybe there was 100. And they're like, sorry, Charlie. And he goes, thank God those thumbsuckers didn't show up. They would have ruined our time together, and he's like, hey, it is what it is. And who's ever here is meant to be here. And we're going to have a more direct, more intimate time. And I'm thankful for it. And that was always the greatest. And so I'm so glad you brought, and we can't, and the other thing I get a lot of, Merle, people say, well, how come we're doing this and somebody else isn't? I don't know. And don't compare yourself. And you're not God. You don't know if God's told them to do this. You don't know if they're trying to do it and they have just not received favor. Just abandon that. All you can answer for is your heart, your motives, and your attitude. Like Viktor Frankl said, and Charles, you can be happy, miserable, or miserable, miserable. It's your choice.
I would add just one other thing on that is I believe that many of us as people get very drained when people disappoint us.
Yeah.
And I think we get bitterness just eats away at us, wears us down. And just a couple of thoughts on that. There's a very pungent statement I heard years ago that really makes sense. It said, bitterness is the poison I take in hope that somebody else will die.
Mhm.
So if I get all wound up and I get all bitter and angry, I'm the one that's hurting. I'm the one that's hurting myself. And then the other thought is the biblical reference where in Romans, Paul said, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay."
Mhm.
So when there are people that have done wrong, I don't like it, bothers me. but I'm not the judge and jury. I don't know everything. And why do I wanna try to do what God says was his job? I think he's pretty capable
Yeah.
handling situation. So, Merle, you just take care you stay in your lane, take care of your stuff, and that has helped me calm down
Yeah.
over things.
Yeah, that's really and abandonment, not just focusing on what you need to, but putting down what can really poison your spirit. And it makes you weary and it makes you and it's a detraction, it's all those things. So thank you. We need to abandon the bad stuff, not just to focus on the good stuff, but really get rid of it. So, okay, Merle, last is that he talked about was vision. And again, I would, as a little girl, hear vision and think, wow, these guys, these Dale Carnegies, these Zig Ziglars, these Norman Vincent Peales, they're visionaries. That's not me. And my father would always say to me, no, no, Tracy, vision is just seeing what needs to be done and then doing it. A lot of people see what needs to be done, but very, very few will end up doing it. So, what keeps you on point for what is to come and where you're going?
My best to wake up every morning with the idea it's a brand new day and to realize that different people are gonna cross my paths that day,
Mm,
some for 5 seconds, some maybe for longer, and how can I be a part to be a help to those to that person I meet? It could just be a word, it could be a connection that could start a long time friendship. There's a variety of different ways. But I've been fortunate enough and believe in the fact that there are divine interventions, and we don't always know the power of the words that we had. For example, Tracy, when did your father pass away?
October 16th, 2008.
2008. All right. So, I mean, I first read the book in about 1969 and all. So there were several years, but your father had no idea the influence it put on my mother to
Mhm,
promote reading, and he had no idea. He can see what all that goes on. So we don't always know the effect. So that type of I'm not really the long-term vision guy. That doesn't really fit me. Are there other people that are good at that?
mhm.
But I say my vision for today and my vision encounters, how can I be a benefit to the
Mm,
person I come in contact with? And sometimes I know I did, sometimes I don't know that, but
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah. Well, I love that you brought vision right to just today, because today is still unknown, and I think sometimes, "Well, where are you gonna be in a year, 3, 5 years?" And I'm like you, that's just not in my coding. If you made me sit down and do that, it's just not my thing. But I can really get intent on today and who's passed, and I really like that approach to it.
And I think also, Tracy, when you mentioned that, I'm sure you can do this and I can do this and the listeners can do this. You can look back to some, if you want to call them divine appointments, where I can look back to some people I crossed paths with, and because I had conversations, it opened up doors of opportunity to me. Or there was an opportunity presented, say, "Hey, we need somebody to do this."
Mhm.
And I thought, "I don't know how to do this, but I'll try." And that opened up doors of opportunities. And it's a little bit like that joke that they tell about the guy that's stuck up on the roof, flood coming. And everybody's heard that joke. You know, they send different boats by, and he says, "No, no, God's going to take care of me." And the guy drowns and all. So he had 2 or 3 opportunities, he didn't take advantage of it. He gets
Yeah,
to heaven, and he says, "Lord, well, you didn't protect me." He says, "Man, I sent by 2 or 3 people to help you. I
yeah,
was trying to help you."
yeah,
And we're looking for this pie in the sky or this signal, and it's really what's right there, what's in your hand that you
that's
can do. And I think that has worked well for me. It may not work for everybody else,
yeah.
but it's worked for me. What's here right now
I
that I
love
can
that
do?
word tangent. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, and it's almost a parable of the sowers. You don't know the seeds go, and you don't know when the vision may not be in our lifetime. But certainly, we have the hope of everything we do is stored up where moths aren't gonna eat it, thieves aren't gonna steal it, and rust isn't gonna destroy it. So that's what our great hope is, our great vision is.
Huge.
Excellent. All right. So, Merle, we covered loneliness, weariness, abandonment, and vision. Is there anything else regarding the price of leadership that we have not touched on that you would like to share with our listeners?
When we realize the opportunity to make a difference for a person's life. I believe it was D.L. Moody who said, "The best monument that you can have for your life and what you do is another person whose life has been changed and influenced by you.
Mm.
And I understand that we live in an economy, businesses have to be profitable. They have to do I've got that. But at the same time, leadership, far from being a title, is influence. And it's, could I use my life and the gifts I've been given to be a benefit to another person to make their life better? Not because of me, but just to pass on the gifts I've been given. And that, if there is a price, that is worth the reward
Mm.
to say, I made a difference for someone.
Yeah, you did. I love that, Merle. Merle, how can people get in touch with you?
They could certainly find me on LinkedIn, Merle Heckman on LinkedIn. There's also the email address, merle.heckman@dalecarnegie.com is another way to get in touch, but probably LinkedIn is the quickest and easiest way, and I will always respond to people if they'd reach out. I'd be honored to.
Yes, he does. Well, Merle, just I can't thank you enough. I am so thankful that we connected. Who'd have thunk all those years ago? And that is just the blessing of our lives that this just keeps paying it forward. I know our listeners out there have heard some tremendous things of encouragement, and I want to thank everybody out there for listening. If you like what you heard, please be sure and share this with somebody. We love a review that really helps other people find out. And Merle said it earlier. Remember, you're going to be the same person 5 years from now that you are today, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. You just met the tremendous Merle Heckman, so I know you're more tremendous already. And we've talked about many tremendous books that he shared. So please, everybody, keep on changing the world one book at a time. Merle, thank you again, brother. I look forward to many, many more conversations this side of heaven.
My privilege. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, everybody. Have a tremendous day.
Thank you for listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones. Find out more about Dr. Jones at www.tremendousleadership.com. If you've been ignited by something you heard in this episode, let us know by leaving a review for Tremendous Leadership wherever you listen to podcasts, or by sending us a message through www.tremendousleadership.com.